it is not separate from our existence. It's not separate. Like, I am a child of war. I had bombs in my backyard, before I immigrated. It's not something that it's like over there, it's very much a part of like my whole life story. And in that, I want to be gay and dance, as you said. And it's also part of that. Like, we hold it in tandem, this complexity, we exist in it. And actually, like, I think the most revolutionary act for us is to like exist in that wholeness where we get to be gay and dance and have fun and make out and also be like, and this is political. Mm-hmm.
People are saying Pride has become too corporate. Lots of banks have no problem at all associating with Pride, and there's a certain, I guess, apoliticalness to it. Last year, the corporate Pride, the main Pride, known as Fierté, got some heat for their unwillingness to take a stance on Palestine, and it sort of has caused a division. Montreal is no stranger to alternative Pride festivals. Last year, I did an interview with Celeste Trianon about Rad Pride, the sort of black bloc alternative Pride that went on that insists Pride is not a friendly parade and is in fact a protest. Then there's also Wild Pride. So Wild Pride bills itself as something a little more family friendly than something like Rad Pride. Wild Pride is explicitly political. They name themselves being anti-fascist, anti-racist, anti-imperialist. But what does that really mean? I think if you go through their programming, which this year is incredibly extensive, you'll see lots of that politics showing up. But I was curious about how that shows up behind the scenes, what their motivations were, and what they see as a successful Pride in comparison with corporate Pride. Today, I speak with Ayla and Kamâmik, who are two people involved with Wild Pride this year, and they came on to talk about their experiences, their motivations, and what they're hoping to build with their alternative Pride. Here's the interview. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Local 514. Today, we're talking about Pride, but not corporate Pride. In fact, today we're talking about the alternative Pride that has come to be, that started last year with its first incarnation, and this year they're looking at their second. Today we're talking about Wild Pride. I'm joined by Ayla and Kamâmik. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you're both involved with Wild Pride. Can you tell me a bit about what it is you do with Wild Pride?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Ayla. I am part of the care team at Wild Pride, which is something we put together this year to ensure that, one, the things we do are sustainable, that they have a structure that it could live on beyond us, that we build capacity within our team, but also have a space where concerns from the community can be heard in more generative ways. And also all of the principles that we talk about have a way of actively living within this living organism. So yeah, that's what we came here to do.
Incredible.
Hi, I'm Kamâmik. I am a part of the coordination team as well as volunteer coordination. So I oversee the volunteer team as well as within our horizontal organizing, the coordination team oversees all of the teams. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of just there to fill in the gaps, make sure everything's running smoothly. Yeah.
Incredible. How big is the team this year?
I think we have about 30 people.
Wow.
Some people are a little like, they show up when they can, but we have definitely a lot more people than we did last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say around 30 to 40, because I think we've like kind of come and gone. I'm like thinking of our mailing list. That's how I've seen it right now. But yeah, that's about the range of our core committee team, I would say. Nice. But you're not counting then the volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a huge like import of like community support from all sources now this year. That's much bigger than last.
Incredible. So it's Wild Pride is a festival that goes over 17 days, I believe, and it's more than 100 different events, workshops, panels. I want to go back a little bit to last year at the first incarnation of Wild Pride. Neither of you yet were involved, but I mean, obviously, I imagine it was on the radar for you, and I'm kind of curious what you thought of it last year.
Yeah, so last year I was a participant, so I went to a couple events. I think the first thing I noticed, I was at a poetry night for Palestine event. I didn't even know there was tickets. I remember seeing it on social media. I showed up and there was a line down the street. And then they were like, "Do you have tickets?" And I was like, "Do you need tickets?" And they got us all in somehow, crammed us into this little, spot. And I remember thinking the first thing was like, "Wow, this city has such a need for this, that this is not what has, like, there's such an appetite that hasn't been maybe fed by other sources of how we celebrate pride, that pride can be political. It can look like we show up in community in ways that matter to us, that are aligned with our values." And that was what really struck me at that first event. I went to many more in the season last year, but that was my first thing. And I remember DMing the Wild Pride organizers, whoever's running social media last year, one of the four, and I said, in a world where everyone is destroying things, way to plant seeds for the kind of futures we want. And that was kind of my first interaction with Wild Pride. And then this year I came in with that same voice of like, I really believed in what you guys did this year, and I really want it to last many more years. And so I'm happy to come on and volunteer.
Incredible. How about yourself?
So last year I heard about Wild Pride through, it was a lot of word of mouth. I have a lot of queer friends and everybody was kind of talking about it. I think I also saw a few posters around the plateau. And last year I was in Fierté's parade and I remember thinking that I wanted to be in Wild Pride's parade. And I was like, damn, I need to do this. And so this year I'm a part of the organizing team, and that to me is so beautiful.
Incredible. You jump ship then. I'm kind of curious.
Oh, absolutely. So fast.
Yeah. I mean, when people talk about Wild Pride, I mean, of course, people call it an alternative pride. You have these kind of popping up all over the country, all around the world, because I guess the argument is that you have this version of pride that's, all around, that's too corporate. I'm kind of curious if one of you want to go into that. What is something that's too corporate? Why is it that pride became what it is, and that there needed to be a sort of alternative to it?
I have a lot to say about this. I think to me, as queer people have gained more rights, like over the years, and there's more and more people who are comfortably out. I think, especially within Quebec, where the queer scene is like predominantly white, I think a lot of white queer people live relatively cozier lives. And so I think Pride has really kind of lost its activism stance because those communities don't have as much to fight for as, say, like our communities within like marginalized queer people. So I think that to me is when I think Fierté, I'm like, the audience that goes to that Pride Parade to me is like they don't question what the organizers are doing because it's like, it's so mainstream. People are so used to being kind of just told what to do or told what is what, and they don't ask too many questions. But like, when you think about it, like even like the recent article with CBC, Fierté stated, no, I think that was last year, Fierté stated like, oh, we don't take money from just any organization or any like corporation, like we ask questions, and clearly that's not the case because they're still taking money from the same people, even though people have spoken out about this. So I think as we're becoming more politically like aware as a community, people are less comfortable being complacent now. And especially when you have a group of people that are like, oh, we can actually do something about this. Like last year's Wild Pride was like, we're going to just do something about it. I think more people are like, oh, we can totally do that.
Yeah. And I think like we're like placed as this idea of the minority, but the minority isn't the minority. The minority, this like concept of it, is the majority. It's just the power structures present that this is the voice. But like I said, showing up events last year, it showed me that isn't the main voice. There are crowds and crowds of people. The minority isn't the minority. They are the majority. They just haven't had the power and privilege the select few have had to tell us the story in this way. And we're just disrupting that story. So actually, I would believe that the story we're telling and the ways we're trying to tell it is the majority. And we are gaining power by creating these new pathways and these new systems to do it our way. But the kind of backing of it, the need for it, the desire, the hunger is actually much louder. It's just we usually haven't had the power and platforms to be able to kind of take space so actively. And I think to see the way the community interacts, the outpour, the ability for us to run so many events in such a short amount of time is kind of the proof that this is not an alternative thing adjacent. This is the main event. It just hasn't had the resources, the power, the privilege to show you. But if we want to talk about numbers, I actually think it takes more space. It's just this is where we see what privilege does. It skews our perspective on what the needs and desires of the community are.
No, thank you for those answers. I mean, I'm kind of curious. Would you say that the corporate pride is sort of depoliticized in the way that people want it to be more political, or like does it exist as this thing that's like, when people say corporate, after what you've both described, I'm imagining like, they're not using their, I mean, if I could name it, because last year there's these tensions around Palestine, right, and the main corporate pride where people in the community want pride, the main pride that I say main pride, I'm so sorry.
See the propaganda, it's getting to you. It's so
Yeah. I'm going to get a big check from them soon. No, that's not the case. What I want to say is, last year's Pride, we saw this sort of flare up because of Palestine, because of the politics around that Pride didn't seem to want to take on. So I'm kind of wondering from both of you, is it that Pride is apolitical? Is it depoliticized? And then how does that stand in contrast to what Wild Pride is building?
I feel like they try to position themselves as sort of liberal or like apolitical, where like they won't take a stance on certain things unless they absolutely have to because people complain about it. But even then, like their actions don't align with what they're saying, so it is all just talk. And that to me, I think is just the core of like capitalism, white supremacy. Like these are things that people, I think, don't even sometimes know how to talk about. So if Fierté was going to come out and denounce all these things, they're going to lose so much of their audience because people are like, oh, I don't want to think about that. I just want to go and be gay and dance around for like a day. So it's just like, to me, I think a lot of people within Wild Pride our whole lives are these political conversations. Our whole existence is like, everything is so political and we have to stand up for ourselves. So we know how to talk about these things. And just now people are getting better at like, learning what solidarity looks like, learning how to take care of each other, how do we hold each other. Yeah. And I think that is kind of the big turning point that is going to take a while, I think, for mainstream to not be performative with.
I mean, everything is political. To think that something is not political shows me your politics, first and foremost. It's aligning to safety because safety is white supremacy. That is why. So to be like, I'm not political, it's because you're trying to get close to white supremacy as possible so that you think you're going to maintain some sort of imaginary safety within your structure. If you are gay, it's political. Like to deny that as part of you is denying parts of yourself and kind of, again, trying to align with the white supremacy of it all. So I think that like that just is something that needs to be said out loud constantly. I wrote a romance book. In my pitch to agents, I wrote romance is political. Like to think that any of these places are like separate from that is it shows me your politics, it shows me your privilege, because we all exist in this ecosystem. It just depends on how close it is to your family, to your table, to the food you eat, to the language you speak. And so the proximity tells me whether it's in your life or not. This is when you talk to any of us on the Wild Pride team, but most of it, again, like the community I say that shows up to these events, that's going to show up for the next 17 days, as you put it, it is not separate from our existence. It's not separate. Like, I am a child of war. I had bombs in my backyard, before I immigrated. It's not something that it's like over there, it's very much a part of like my whole life story. And in that, I want to be gay and dance, as you said. And it's also part of that. Like we hold it in tandem, this complexity, we exist in it. And actually, like, I think the most revolutionary act for us is to like exist in that wholeness where we get to be gay and dance and have fun and make out and also be like, and this is political.
No, thank you for those answers. as you named, I think Wild Pride sets itself to be something that is explicitly political. I think in the about, you see name yourselves as being anti-imperial, anti-colonial, anti-racist, anti-capitalist. I'm kind of curious, how beyond just the programming that aligns with that, how does that show up in how you organize yourselves and how you actually work with each other?
One of the first things I noticed was the amount of opportunities that the team wanted to pass on to me. I thought that was so special because I was like, whoa, I'm not used to people wanting to give me a platform. I'm not used to people wanting to listen to me. And I was like, oh my God, like these people, they're serious about what they're doing. And there's so much consulting within each other of like, if something kind of concerns one demographic, we will be like, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? Do you want to speak about this? And I think that to me is exactly what solidarity and love is supposed to look like. Like, this is how we're showing up for each other and is through direct action. And that to me is just so special. Like, I think especially as being like a two-spirit person, people are kind of opening their eyes to what that even means and looks like. And I think within Wild Pride, people were so open to that already. They were like super open that they needed more Indigenous representation on the team. And they're so grateful for everything that I've brought to the team so far. And that to me is just so beautiful. I'm like, we're so serious about this.
Yeah, because we are also like settlers of color. We've all been like ripped from our homelands, put onto stolen land, and we're all just like trying to navigate this sense of like homelessness essentially and sense of belonging together. So I think these types of conversations allow us to reimagine in tandem of what that looks like, how we honor where we're coming from, where we are, and then what that looks like when we organize in these spaces now. It's just a different type of conversation to start with, I would say. Again, there was a core founding team last year. They're the ones that started it, and then they, recruited us volunteers this year to come on board. And through that process, we've constantly been co-creating what it looks like this year, and we'll co-create what it looks like next year. And I think that in itself is new. And like the term that I used in my interview, and like what we see now actively happening is like, because the focus is on capacity building. So not only like as an organization, how the organization itself will have the means to be sustainable over time, but also the individual members, exactly like you were saying, for something to be passed on with like, this is you can do this. This then builds the muscles and tools within them to like be able to have this new experience. So now next year they can train people to come talk to media. Like, the whole idea is that the power structures don't live within one person. They are a constant exchange and co-creation with each other. And then we build capacity within each of us, because each of us has something to bring to the table. It's each one teach one approach, I would call it. And from that, we're then building capacity, which means also the organization, this whole concept of Wild Pride is a living, breathing organism. So it will change and evolve because we are feeding all its sources. So what it looks like next year, we won't know, because it will depend on, again, the people who are going to plant the seeds next year, who's going to water it next year, and it will bloom. And I think usually you don't find that in organizational structure. There's a very rigid thing of this is what we are and this is how we do it. And it doesn't give any space for adaptability, transformation, expansion. And so if we talk about organizing, I think that is also a novel way of organizing, that we're not holding on so tightly of like, this is how we have to be, and more like with open palms, like how do we receive and learn from each other?
Incredible. I feel like that's really reflected through the programming. I think through the variety of different topics, workshops, things covered. I'm kind of a little curious about the work it is that you do as care support. Could you go into that a little bit?
Sure. So CARE was kind of established this year. So we've been reimagining it and imagining it as we do it. So next year we'll have more of a better idea. But essentially the idea was we wanted first and foremost to provide the team with a space to be cared for. So that means in elements of like, if there's interpersonal conflicts, if there's conflicts within the team, or they're just like time management, or if people are being burnt out, they have a place to go. So that's like the simplest structure, I would call it. The other part is that it's a horizontal system. So within a horizontal system, you have to reimagine how accountability, I call it like freedom and structure, is organized, so that the work actually gets done. There's responsibility still, but again, the power dynamics are not the same that you see in a traditional model. And then the third layer, I would say, is also to deal with the community. So whether valid or invalid, there will be concerns raised, there will be things come up, and like, for example, social media shouldn't be the one that has to deal with something in their DMs, or a volunteer that isn't trained in that, and a de-escalation for that moment to like deal with a certain matter. So we wanted them to have someone that they could go to when things happen. So whether it's a problem that comes through the DMs, whether it's an email we get, whether it's a conflict within the community, now we have a team that we're kind of setting kind of the precedent of how it looks like to care for each other, of how to engage with those things. So the principles that I would talk about here, on my personal website, I have the revolution is relational, which means that like how we hold space with and for each other determines the systems we create. So in the smallest interactions within a relationship between you and I, how we deal with us is the ripple effect of the systems we live in. So we usually find people talk about really big things like, I want transformative justice and I want this and I want that. And then what does that look like in real life? What does that look like when I'm sitting next to you and we hate each other? What does that actually look like in practice? How do I care for myself and tend to myself, but also believe that you deserve justice? And so that is the active ways in which the care team has tried to create pathways this year, and hopefully we'll do a better job even next year of what it looks like to live within these values we talk about so much. When we are anti-police, what does that look like to keep safety in our events? When we are, again, like if we're looking at transformative justice, how do we reimagine the cancel culture, and see the roots in certain things of like this protect your peace energy, when it actually is based on capitalism, because we are been taught to constantly, like upgrade, like throw out someone and throw and like upgrade. So what does it look like to reimagine that? So I usually say like we all want community, but we don't know how to be community members, because most of our practices of conflict, our ceremony and how we sit together and bring resolution to stuff has been stripped of us, because that's how the power is managed. And so kind of reimagining that within these structures of like, how do we, in Farsi, it's a sofra, is like a table spread. So how do we sit at the sofra together? Like how do we sit at a table with opposing views and find a way to reduce harm, but also live within the principles that I still believe you deserve care. And it's not easy. I would like to also say, like, this sounds really fancy. In reality, it's very uncomfortable. It constantly means reimagining a third way in moments that usually sometimes everyone at the table is very unhappy. But constantly rooting in this idea is, what is the core value? What are we trying to establish? And then how do we keep walking that third way together? It's not clear cut. We live in the nuance. We live in the gray a lot of the time. But I, again, believe that these micro relationships decide the macro ways in which we live. Because in societies where punishment is the only way and canceling is the only way, we are creating and recreating the cycles of harm and violence that we are trying so hard to take down. So if I shame you and isolate you, then I'm ensuring that I'm creating that same cycle of harm that you harmed me already, that is now festering inside you for another round. So I want to still protect myself. I don't want to endure more harm, but I also don't want this to continue within your system to create more problems down the line. So that whole conversation is what it looks like to do this work in organizing.
And you do this as a volunteer.
Yeah. I have a great teammate, but yeah.
Incredible. I want to ask you a little bit about the work you've been doing. So I feel like you wear a few different hats, right, for Wild Pride?
I do, yeah. So I have coordination team, volunteer coordinator, and also media spokesperson. I think as the events started to kick off, volunteer coordination has taken up most of my time, because when any coordinating role, there are just a million things that come up that you don't prepare for. And who would have thought that trying to coordinate 300 volunteers would be like kind of a part-time job? And also, I'm finding that the people within my volunteer team, we've all kind of turned into like the same role. Like we are all on the same level of, we are coordinating our categories that have whatever 10, 20 events in them. And then so it's like divided into little teams, I feel. And right now I'm just trying to make sure that my team has the capacity they need to keep running if they don't, like, we'll pass off tasks to other people who can help. And that's like what I think I love about our structure is that everybody's kind of like, I can help you with a random thing if you don't have time, because I find that we're like pretty well organized for what we're working with, where people are like super eager to help, and that to me it's super great.
I want to ask a little bit about the media side of things. I think I
Oh, yes.
overheard a little Lazio Canada
yes.
piece. Could you share with us how that went and what that is exactly?
Yeah, so I did an interview with Radio Canada, and it was with another team member of mine, Laurence. And I thought this was going to be an interesting conversation given the journalist was white and Laurence is also white. And so I was like, okay, a lot of what I'm going to say, I don't know how much of it she's going to understand what I'm talking about. And I'm really happy that Laurence was really there to back me up with that and like kind of reiterate a lot of things I was saying, because she did end up quoting my teammate a lot more than she quoted me on things that I said also. And I did notice that. And I think I kind of expected for a lot of what I said to be really butchered. And I thought it was also interesting when I shared the article with my friends, one of my friends said to me, she made you the only person to bring up race in all of the conversation between people who have a closer proximity to whiteness than I do. That the only direct quote she gave me was about my questioning who's on the advisory committee, because it's not like it wasn't public, and I was like, who are they consulting to make Fierté like more inclusive? And so that was the only thing she directly quoted me for. And I was like, wow, okay, I did talk for like half an hour, but okay. She just needed somebody to be the like, I hate Fierté person.
Of course, yeah.
So that's what I gathered from that. It was interesting to me. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, I think with that, we're getting a little bit into this idea or this person, right, that might not know Wild Pride, what it's about. And I'm kind of curious, what do you tell people who you come across who don't quite seem to understand or who want to understand maybe what Wild Pride is? How do you explain to them?
Do you have a line?
I always start with it's anti-corporate, we're anti-fascist, we're trying to build a community that doesn't pay us to do good things. Like we are not being paid out to be activists. Like we're doing what we love, and we're also we're creating spaces that we wish existed for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I kind of the word I've used, I think I already used in this interview, but I use is like it's a pride festival where you get to be whole, which is kind of how I see it, where you don't have to like put one of your identities and compartments to the side to be able to like play. That's how I experienced it last year, is actually how I should say it. That's how I experienced it last year. And then this year, having the privilege to organize, be part of the organizing team, that's how I experienced it this year as well. So yeah, I'm like, it's a place where you get to be whole. Again, like it's just like one of those environments where you imagine when you're a kid and you're an immigrant and you bring like a certain food to school and everyone's like, what's that food? And then you're like, oh, Mom, can you just give me a bologna sandwich? Like that feeling doesn't leave you. And so you always kind of carry it inside you. So like as you get to experience different places in life, when you get to just show up as you are, there is it's a specific type of healing where you're like, can be all of you, all of your parts, where you don't have to like over traumatize yourself so that you're valid, or like whitewash yourself so that you can be part of it. You get to actually just be who you are. And so for me, like I said, all of these events, all the things that are happening, at every single one, you can just show up and have your political views and be queer and have your language and have your food and just be who you are. And no part of that has to like be checked at the door. So that's how I talk about it. I'm just like, it's a pride festival where you could be whole.
Incredible. Speaking of events, there were so many this year, more than 100. I'm kind of curious. You two are part of a few. I'm wondering if you want to sort of highlight a few of them that people might be able to enjoy this year.
You want to plug your events?
Yes. So I also do stand-up comedy, and I have a stand-up show on the 11th. It's with a a queer feminist stand-up group in Montreal, which is super cool. I'm also doing a panel about Indigenous sovereignty and also queer immigrant rights. That I'm going to be so honest, I don't remember the day. It's in my
Okay, we'll have
calendar
it right
somewhere.
here. The day is
It's
right
there.
Perfect.
I'm also super excited. There's going to be a like BIPOC speed dating event on Tuesday. And that to me is such an interesting space because I find that we don't often have that in the city. Like we're always kind of expected to make ourselves fit in.
Yeah.
And so that to me is like, I'm so excited. And I know it's going to be such a, I don't know, lovely time.
I love that. Yeah, so I have one panel. I have a panel that's called
Take your time.
Queer Stories We Tell. It's at Joie de Livre on the 5th at 2 p.m. And it's a combination of different fiction and nonfiction writers, queer writers in the city, about the queer stories we tell and how we tell them. So I personally am a romance writer, but we have a couple other writers who write different types of books. And so I'm excited for that conversation on the different ways we tell queer stories. And then I am going to a bunch of events that I'm really excited for. Tomorrow, I'm going to a digital altars making storytelling workshop. I'm butchering the name, so please put it here properly. I'm sorry. But I remember in the description, it was like belonging, storytelling, and altars, which I was like, these are all my love languages. So sign me up. And I love like, again, all of the like art making type of festivities we have. And then the evening of the 5th, which is my panel is in the afternoon, but in the evening is an Iranian Queer Voices event. Again, put the official name here, that I'm excited to go and be a participant and listen to.
Incredible. I think after these 17 days are done, I'm kind of curious, what would success look like for both of you for Wild Pride this year? How do you want to feel after these 17 days are done? And then what's going to be, I guess, on the outlook for next year?
I know that I'm going to feel so sad when it's over because I'm going to know that we did such a good job and I felt so happy during those, 2 weeks. And I think I'm going to be excited to get to know our team a little more outside of like a working kind of relationship. So I think I'm not looking forward to the like postpartum kind of feeling, but I know that I'm gonna feel that I spent my summer doing what I love.
Okay, so in an official capacity role as the care team, I would really love for the team to feel celebrated. I would love for them to feel healthy this year. Last year, I know there was a lot of burnout. So I'm really hoping this year we can hold each other a little tighter and then hopefully learn for next year. But yeah, I'm hoping the team feels celebrated, feels cared for, and comes out kind of with energy at the end of it versus depleted. And then in terms of next year, I really want to bring kind of the seeds we planted this year and grow them. I was talking to my co-captain, Casey, who does a care team with me, about recruiting some other members of the care next year, because the whole premise, again, about capacity building, we don't want these like roles to be our roles, and we want them to kind of now spread within the team. So we were talking about the idea of spreading the care team, having more members, and kind of reimagining this even more next year. And then for myself, I feel really proud. I mean, like generationally, there's like a couple decades sometimes between me and my teammates. And I really felt like I was talking to one of the co-founders, when we first established this in March, the group this year. And I was like, I really think there's a role for intergenerational care. And so it's a lot of hours and a lot of time to put in. I have 2 kids of my own, so it's a juggle and an act. But I'm really proud that that inkling I had last year, I acted on it, and then I like watched it come to fruition this year. Because again, these are the futures we build, and if we want to see them, we have to get in that garden, get the weeds, and like tend to what we want to see. So yeah, I think part of me also is just really proud that I had this idea and I was like, we're going to do it. And then we did it. And I think our team is really amazing. It's a really dynamic team that each of us bring like such great skills and like vision and ideas. And mostly like, I think there's nothing like running events with like-hearted people. It really changes the game.
Incredible, incredible. We're sort of running on to time here. Is there anything either of you would like to add right at the end here?
I'm excited to have more Two-Spirit inclusion for next year. You know, I brought on a couple activists in the city that I know, and I'm going to try my best to be like, please be a part of it next year. That is my goal, is to bring more of my community and more of the like indigiqueer perspective into the team, so that there's not just me.
Of course.
I would love that. I think that's a
I think
great idea.
it's gonna come along.
That's happening. Okay. Just like, that's a yes, for sure. And I think on that vein, like, I just think that now that we understand like how we like to do things, what things work, where our gaps are, I think really we can reimagine a next year that's even like brighter and just like more dynamic. Because the more voices we have come together, the better we can create what we are here to create.
Incredible,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both for setting time aside and coming onto our show. My name is Kalden Dhatsenpa. This was an interview with two organizers with Wild Pride, Ayla and Kamâmik. The first parade, I believe, is on Sunday, August 8th at 2 p.m. Jean Mons Park. We'll have all the info in our bio. Of course, you can find all this information about Wild Pride at their website, their Instagram. Really, check out the programming. It's an extensive list. There's something for everybody, the whole family, not the family. You know, you get to mix and match and make of it what you will.
Make a family, you know.
Make a family. Yeah. Is that one of the programming?
You can make it.
There you go, folks. Thank you so much for listening, and that'll be all for today.